want to look at iterators and the adapters. Well, consumers and iterators, they are all iterators. An iterator is just a function that takes an iterator as input and produces another iterator's output. And we want to look at the first iterator, which is the filter iterator. Now, when do we, or why would we want to use the filter iterator? For example, if you're given an array of numbers, maybe there are numbers, there could be a negative number and other positive numbers, and for some reasons maybe you have 31 also as a negative number. Now you have that array and you want to print out only negative numbers. How would you do that? So the filter iterator can help you do that. But before we think about the filter iterator, there are normal ways that we know that we can approach this problem without using the filter, and we want to first look at that approach. So if you have a for loop for n in iter array, the array, this one, so r.iter, we're using this iterator on the array, and we want to print n. This is not what we want, because this will just print out the elements within. Yeah, so if we remember, we want to print out the negatives, so we create a condition if the pointer. And the reason why we are using a pointer here is because the iterator returns a reference. So in order to dereference it, you use that pointer. So it's a sort of reverse dereferencing. So if n is less than 0, we want to print out the negatives. So we want to sieve out negatives. So print ln negative, yes, and once you do that, you save, you run again, and you run that, you get the -8 and -31. So that's another way of, that's the classical way of filtering out negatives if you're given an array. But what if we can use the filter operator, sorry, the filter iterator, sorry, the filter iterator. Now, in order to use the filter, we can use for n, still we use the for loop. For n in array, yes, it is giving me that. And we are using for n, we are iterating through the array, and then we are chaining, or we are adding, or we are appending the filter iterator on the array or on the return value from this iteration, and then we are using a reference variable to dereference the pointer to that variable. Another way you can do that is, because the filter returns, sorry, the iterator returns a reference to the variable, and even the filter returns a reference to the variable. So you can go ahead with this closure. Remember, closures are anonymous functions, so to say. So you can put a double dereference to dereference that. So the double dereference here is needed because the iterator produces references to the elements of the array, and the closure takes references to such references. So therefore, x is a reference to an integer, and to get an integer value, you need to dereference it twice. I hope that makes sense. So you have this option or the previous one, and that way you can still save, run, and voila. So you printing out the positive, we are printing out the positives. What if we want to print out the negatives less than 0? So we still do the same thing, okay, and we have the negatives, which is -8 and -31.